Introduction to this inappropriate trainer. Naoka travels through the world of Pokémon to inherit a ranch and gains the ability to bring magical power to Pokémon through cooking. Pokémon in the ranch underwent some wonderful changes as a result. A large milk can that can perform super rolling at 360 degrees without any dead corners, a motorcycle lizard that can move at lightning speed and leave shadows everywhere it passes, and a double ponytail superhero blacksmith who can hammer away Kabi beasts. The wild trainer who learned the information came specifically to challenge his cultivation. Naoki. Has the challenger arrived yet? Lotto Butler. Report Lotto that he had a fight with our dairy cows. Lotto. Keywords. Pokémon, farming, ranch, warm daily, number 996, easy, leisure life, refreshing culture. Chapter 1. Straight trees. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He opened his eyes. Quiet surroundings. The pendulum of the old-fashioned pendulum hanging on the wall swings silently. Naoki sat up from the bed, his chest heaving up and down, panting fiercely. What is this place? Naoka subconsciously observed the surroundings, her heart filled with confusion and confusion. This is a small wooden house. A single bed is placed against the wall in the room, and across from the bed is a wooden desk with a bulging mountaineering backpack casually placed on top. There is a yellowed calendar hanging on the wall next to it, which looks old. On the other side of the room, there is a wooden cabinet. The stove next to the cabinet is piled up with things similar to coal stoves, as well as kitchen utensils such as soup pots and iron pots. Looking at this unfamiliar scene, Ji Shu became even more confused. What's going on? Shouldn't he be working overtime at the company now? Why does it appear here? Hiss. My head hurts so much. Suddenly, something appeared in Naoki's head, which made him feel bloated. A large amount of memory surged in like a tide, and after digesting it, Naoki's face immediately showed an expression of disbelief. Time traveled. After a brief moment of shock, Naoki slowly sorted out the current situation. He has indeed traveled through time. The sudden death of fatigue caused by 5 consecutive days of overtime has traveled to this world. This is a world completely different from Earth. In addition to humans, there is also another type of creature called Pokémon living here, which can be seen in every corner of the world, whether in the sky, ocean, or land. It's actually the world of Pokémon. Naoki was pleasantly surprised. He cannot be said to be very familiar with Pokémon, but he has played and watched both games and anime. When I was young, I also longed for life in this world. As is well known, this place is known for its relaxed and leisurely lifestyle. As long as humans reach the age of 10, they can receive their initial Pokémon and travel around the world with them. Since he has traveled through time, can he also travel freely like the little wisdom in anime? The thought of being able to break free from 996, mortgage and car loans, and no longer be a useless social animal, Naoki's heart was moved. But soon, he calmed down again. Ideals are full, but reality is bone deep. The name of the person he traveled through is also Naoki, and his hometown is the Parthian region. When he was young, he moved with his parents to live in the Fengyuan area. Shortly thereafter, both of their original parents passed away due to illness. And they went to the Fengyuan area to recuperate there. After his parents passed away, he sold his real estate in his original form, as if he had seen through the world and drifted away without any worries for many years. In the end, at the age of 20, he chose to return to his hometown of Parthia, to the pasture left by his grandfather who had passed away early, and ended his life here. Although this is the world of Pokémon, the original body has never tamed Pokémon because they don't want to be concerned. These memories popped up in Naoki's mind, and he couldn't help but let out a sigh. Goo 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 goo. The empty belly let out a protest and the tree glanced at time. 2:00 a.m. At 2 o'clock in the morning, from the current situation, it seems that the original owner did not have dinner. Naoka sighed and said sorry in his heart. Then he got out of bed, opened the owner's backpack according to the memory, found a bag of lammy and noodles, picked up a little water with a pot, and put it on the coal stove to burn. While waiting for the water to boil, the straight tree searched around and found nothing else to eat except for some basic seasonings. Although this is a ranch, due to years of neglect, the fields and the ranch have long been occupied by weeds and rocks, making it impossible to have any vegetables or fruits, let alone eggs. Memories of the prosperous ranch still linger in my mind. At that time, the pasture was lively and prosperous, with various crops growing in the neat fields, and the branches of the fruit trees were also covered with heavy fruits. The Pokemon cottage houses a group of imported large milk jars from the urban area and braided sheep from the Chaldean region, with rows of beehives placed on the grass outside the house. The 3 bees will collect nectar from outside and send it to the beehive to brew honey. Every few days, they can receive jars of crystal clear, sweet and mellow, golden and sticky honey. At this point, the water boiled. When Jishu opened the package of lammy and noodles and prepared to put it into the water, a message suddenly came to mind. Instant lammy and noodles. The quality is low and there is no nutritious basic food, but because of the convenience of cooking, it is favored by many field workers and travelers, and the effect is unknown. Ha! This is Naoka felt inexplicably familiar with this thing. When lammy and noodles is put into water, with the boiling of water, the originally stiff noodles soon soften. Put seasoning into the straight tree. He cannot be said to be proficient in cooking, he only knows a little. Due to living alone, most of his 3 meals a day are prepared by himself, which saves money. Over time, he learns to cook. Soon, lammy and noodles was cooked. Naoka didn't think much, so he put it in a bowl and sat at the desk, ready to fill his stomach with it. But at this moment, the familiar information reappeared in his mind. The clear soup noodles with too much salt, d. Low-grade cuisine. Because of the excessive salt, it lost its original benefit effect and can only be used for food. If you eat too much, you will be thirsty. Bao Kameng who likes the salty taste may like it. Evaluation. Although it is poor, it will not make Bao Kameng faint. The eyebrows of the straight tree twitched. Good guy. He finally remembered where this familiar feeling came from. Isn't this the recipe introduction interface for a game called Cuisine Master, developed by their game company? That is a garbage game that uses the name of food to deceive Krypton. Zhaozuiyuan.com. The game is a cultivation type, and the setting inside is that players have magical abilities. The dishes they make can provide various attributes and enhancements to the characters inside, as well as other bizarre magical abilities. The magnitude and quality of the game are also related to the cooking level made by the player, just like most junk games, where the cooking level is divided from F to SSS. The level of cuisine is closely related to the rarity and quality of ingredients, as well as the culinary skills of players. D can only be said to be average. If the taste of F is worse, it may even bring buffs to the characters in the game, reduce their attributes, and cause them to die suddenly when fighting against enemies. What's the situation? Naoka was slightly stunned and couldn't help but think of the online novels he had read before. Is this my golden finger? Naoka looked at the words Pokemon in the description above and picked up a bowl to eat noodles. As the noodles entered, a salty taste immediately filled the entire mouth. Shu. Sure enough, there was too much salt added. Although I can't get used to it, this is currently the only food left in the room. Naoka endured eating while continuing to study the condition of his golden finger. That is to say, the dishes he is making now can bring various magical abilities and benefits to the Pokemon he eats. Approximately. Chapter 2. Past Events of the Ranch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although I had a rough guess about the effect of the golden finger in my heart, due to some practical reasons, Naoka was unable to try it at all. One is that he doesn't have Pokémon around him, and the other is that the original owner is really poor. At 3 a.m., Naoki, who had barely filled his stomach, began to contemplate his current situation. For him, traveling to this world is certainly a joyful thing, but no matter which world he is in, no matter what he wants to do, the prerequisite is to fill his stomach. Naoki cleaned the tableware and then sat at the desk to tidy up the original owner's belongings. As a wandering wanderer, the contents of the original owner's backpack were very simple. Apart from a few clothes to change, there were only 3 bags of noodles and a pile of scattered coins and banknotes left. Naoki counted and found that the total amount of money was around 2,300. Not to mention supporting him to travel with this little money, he may starve to death in less than a month. Calculating the world's price conversion in his heart, Naoki couldn't help but hide his face and sigh. Sigh, he's too difficult. But thinking of the cute and domineering Pokémon in the anime, Naoki regained his energy and perked up. Take a step and watch it step by step. Perhaps it was a lack of rest for a long time before the journey, or perhaps the body was too tired, and after filling its stomach, Naoki quickly felt a surge of drowsiness. He didn't resist, thinking that he could finally get a good night's sleep. He didn't have to worry about being late for work tomorrow, nor did he have to save money to pay off his mortgage. Tomorrow is another day when he wakes up. Turning off the light and lying on the wooden bed, the straight tree quickly fell asleep. The next morning, he was awakened by a knock on the door. Naoki suddenly opened his eyes and sat up nervously, looking around and realizing the fact that he had already crossed over. I breathed a sigh of relief as the knocking on the door outside continued. Naoki felt a bit puzzled in his heart. He got out of bed with a messy head of hair, opened the door, and saw an old man wearing a brown vest, a slightly chubby figure, and a black gentleman's top hat standing outside the door. The old man is approximately between 60 and 70 years old. When he came out, a gentle and kind smile appeared on his face. Standing beside the old man stood a creature with upright legs, resembling a lizard in appearance. The body of the creature was green, shiny, shimmering smoothly in the morning light. There was a tire-like structure on its neck, and a strong and sturdy dark green tail swayed gently behind it. The tip of the tail presented a clear white color. It was looking over curiously with a pair of big eyes open. Naoki was instantly attracted and recognized the identity of this Pokémon. A motorcycle lizard. The old man in front of him is the mayor of Zhanshin town. The old man spoke up and said, "I heard from you yesterday that you wanted to stay and take care of this ranch. I thought you might not be familiar with ranch work, and cleaning alone would be tiring, so I brought this child over." Naoki was momentarily taken aback, and with a little recollection, a memory came to mind. Yesterday morning, when the original owner returned to the ranch, he happened to meet the old mayor. The mayor recognized him and after some pleasantries, he said, "This is the inheritance left by your grandfather for you. I know you will come back one day, so I will come over to help clean it up every now and then. Although it has been abandoned for many years, the house can still be inhabited. You can rest assured to stay here." The original owner politely thanked him. The old town mayor smiled and said, "When I was young, I was friends with your grandfather. When you were young, I even hugged you. This was something your grandfather asked me before he passed away. You must give the ranch to you." The old mayor probably thought the original owner had come back to take care of the ranch, right? Naoki thought to himself. Thinking of this, Naoki instantly understood the current situation, but looking at this motorcycle lizard, he still felt a bit puzzled. Looking at the tall and thin young man in front of him, the old mayor couldn't help but feel a little sad and regretful. What a pitiful child. All his relatives have passed away, and he is the only one left in this world. After seeing his appearance yesterday, the old mayor returned home and brought his own motorcycle lizard child over. One is to keep the motorcycle lizard by his side so that we can have a companion, and the other is that the motorcycle lizard can also help him take care of the ranch together. The old mayor sighed in his heart and asked gently on his face, "Can you help me take care of it?" Ji Shu. As an adult, he immediately understood the meaning of the old mayor. Looking straight at the motorcycle lizard from the tree. The motorcycle lizard also looked at him with big eyes open, innocent and curious. The motorcycle lizard, usually a Pokémon with dragon attributes, has been living with every household in the Parthian region since ancient times. They have a gentle temperament, and due to their fear of cold, they can use human body temperature to warm their backs, so they will allow humans to ride on their own backs. Therefore, in the special region of Parthia, motorcycle lizards also play a role in transportation. Naoki couldn't think of any reason to refuse, because he also wanted to have his own Pokémon. It seems unlikely for Xiao Ji, like in the anime, to collect his initial Pokémon from a local doctor and travel together. He doesn't have any Pokémon on his body, let alone rely on his fists and feet to capture wild Pokémon in the wild. "Thank you, I will take care of it," said Naoki. Upon hearing these words, the old mayor felt relieved and grinned, "Since that's the case, then I'll leave this child to you. Oh, by the way, you shouldn't be familiar with the work here on your first day at the ranch, right? I used to 996 in my past life, and everything in front of me was indeed a bit unfamiliar to Naoki." Naoki nodded, and at that moment, the question he was thinking about last night also had an answer. Now he has nowhere to go, and his understanding of the world is limited to the anime he has watched and the games he has played before. In his current situation, staying in this place is the best choice, at least having a place to shelter from the wind and rain. The old town mayor smiled and said, "Since that's the case, I'll take you around this ranch. But then again, you left Parthia at the age of 10 and settled in Fengyuan, right?" Naoki. Yes. The old mayor couldn't help but feel a little emotional. 10 years have passed in a blink of an eye, how time flies. The prosperous and bustling scene of the past is still vividly remembered, but now, after the hustle and bustle, there are no people left, only a desolate and dilapidated pasture remains. The farmland is occupied by weeds and rocks, and the Pokémon cottage has been corroded by time, leaving only a skeleton that can be vaguely distinguished from its shape. The two of them were walking in the pasture, with the motorcycle lizard obediently following behind them, secretly observing the human youth. Naoki didn't notice that since he had decided to stay and take care of the ranch, he paid extra attention to the words of the old mayor. The old mayor's gaze was filled with nostalgia, and every time he went to a place, his mind would conjure up memories of the past. The land in front of us is the farmland in the pasture. A long time ago, various crops grew here, and in autumn, the fields would harvest various fruits. That house is where the rancher lives, and the large box next to it is a shipping box. You can put all the crops and milk you usually harvest inside. There is a valley to the east of the ranch, where most of the Pokémon are small and gentle Pokémon. You can go there to pick mountain goods and tree fruits, and then put unnecessary things in and out of the container. Every afternoon at 5 o'clock, people in the town come over to take the items in the boxes and settle the bill. The collected goods will be delivered by a dedicated person to the Zaichin market for sale. When you develop in the future, there will be special cars coming to transport goods. They will transport the products produced from the ranch to various corners of the Parthian region and sell them to different people. Ji Shu. What kind of farm story? Fortunately, he had played farming games before and was quite familiar with the content, so he quickly accepted these things. At this moment, Jishu caught a glimpse of an abandoned building surrounded by several large trees and weeds. He couldn't help but wonder, what is that? The old mayor glanced at it and said with regret, "That's the Pokémon cottage in the ranch. Your grandfather once imported more than 10 large milk jars to keep there in the urban area." At this point, the old mayor's eyebrows furrowed again, and he let out a sigh as he continued. "After his death, those big milk cans were also resold by your parents to others, and this Pokémon cottage slowly became abandoned. However, you don't have to worry. After you get started, you can go to the carpentry shop and entrust them to help expand the house and repair the Pokemon cottage. Oh, by the way, I have put all the tools you can use in the ranch there for you. The old mayor pointed to the miscellaneous room behind the house and said, the axe for chopping trees, the hammer for smashing stones, the hoe for cultivation, the watering sprayer, the sickle for mowing grass, and a few bags of crop seed suitable for spring planting. In short, this ranch is yours. I hope you can take good care of the ranch and restore the prosperity of this place. If one day comes, your grandfather will definitely be very happy. Naoki remained silent for a moment before nodding and saying, I will do my best. Upon hearing his reply, the old mayor's face showed a smile and said, since that's the case, I won't say much more. You can take care of the motorcycle lizard. It has a lot of strength and can definitely help you take care of the ranch together. Upon hearing these words, the motorcycle lizard let out a joyful cry. Gah! The old mayor smiled and then prepared to turn around and leave. But before he could walk out a few meters, he suddenly turned around and said, there's one more thing. Naoki hurriedly said, you tell me. The old town mayor said, you can keep the wood and stones that have been chopped down with an axe. When you save enough money, you can send them to the carpentry shop for them to help expand the house and Pokemon cottage. You can save a lot of material money. Naoki recorded this matter. The old mayor took off his hat from a distance and spoke softly, I live in Jianshin town. If you have anything, just come to me. The motorcycle lizard knows its location, and you can ride it and find the place directly. Okay, Naoki nodded. After speaking, the old mayor left. In the 198th year of the Union calendar, spring had just arrived in the Parthian region and the temperature had not yet fully warmed up. Naoki Moto Lizard stood at the entrance of the small wooden house, watching as the figure of the old mayor gradually faded away. Until it completely disappeared, Naoki turned his head and looked at the shiny motorcycle lizard beside him. Although he is an outsider, based on the appearance and demeanor of the motorcycle lizard, it can still be inferred that its body is very healthy and well cultivated. Thinking of the magical setting of Pokemon, Naoki was curious and couldn't help but say, motorcycle lizard. Gah! The motorcycle lizard turned to look over. Sure enough, it knew it was a motorcycle lizard. Naoki asked again, can you understand what I'm saying? If you can, just nod. Gah! The motorcycle lizard obediently nodded its head. Just like in anime, Pokemon can directly understand human language. Naoki's heart was completely replaced by novelty. According to the setting, Pokemon are a magical creature with intelligence and emotions far superior to ordinary animals. Even some Pokemon have intelligence and emotions that are comparable to humans. Looking at the shiny skin of the motorcycle lizard, Naoki couldn't help but extend his hand to touch it. Unlike the imagined feeling, it is not as scary as a real lizard to the touch. Instead, it gives people a texture similar to leather. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com is like a motorcycle. The motorcycle lizard did not show any displeasure towards his touch, but instead narrowed its eyes comfortably, looking quite happy. Naoki learned from Xiaoji's appearance in the anime and said to Moto Lizard, please take good care of him in the future. Gah! After speaking, Naoki didn't know what to say. He withdrew his hand and suddenly his stomach began to growl. The sound was heard by the motorcycle lizard, and its eyes turned to the stomach of the straight tree. Naoki couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed and asked, have you had your meal yet? I'm just going to cook, do you want to come together? Gah! Although the motorcycle lizard has already had breakfast, it still appears very happy about the invitation of its new owner. It nodded and followed the straight tree back to the wooden house. Looking at this wooden house, at this moment, Naoki felt a different feeling in his heart. He took a deep breath and thought to himself that this would be his home in the future. In my previous life, I was 996, but in this life, it's not bad to be a leisurely farmer. Perhaps the life of a rancher may be tiring, but at the very least, working here is for oneself. A new life is about to begin. Naoki took a deep breath and glanced at the motorcycle lizard beside him. Just say that Chow Chow is here. Last night, he was thinking that he didn't have a Pokémon to test his golden finger. This morning, he got a motorcycle lizard. Since that's the case, then it's up to you. Now Shu starts to boil oil, no, boil water, prepare a clear noodles and soup, see what effect it has, whether it can bring all kinds of magical benefits to Bakmeng as in the game. Chapter 3. Hot Noodles in Soup. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As the most basic cooking, clear soup noodles are very simple. Boil the water until it boils, and then add instant Lamian noodles. If there are enough ingredients, the straight tree will add scallions and lard to the noodles, filling them with soup and serving them in a bowl. At that time, the scallions will float on top of the soup, adding a touch of green to the noodles and making them more appetizing. Finally, add another drop of sesame oil to it, and put the pre-prepared soft-boiled eggs into it. With a flick of the chopsticks, the golden egg liquid slowly flows out of it, blending with the noodle soup. Just thinking about it, Naoki couldn't help but drool. However, returning to reality, only the basic seasonings were placed in front of him. Silently sighing in his heart, Naoki learned from yesterday's lesson and added an appropriate amount of salt and chicken essence to the pot. Soon, a simple noodles in soup was ready. Naoka filled 2 bowls, and looked down at them as he picked them up. The information of noodles in soup came out of his mind. Hot noodle soup, c. Low-grade cuisine. The taste is slightly inferior due to the lack of some key ingredients, but it is a good choice to warm the spleen and stomach in cold winter. Cooking effect. Cold-resistant protection LV1, with a cold-resistant effect that can withstand severe cold. After drinking it, the body will become warm for a duration of 30 minutes. Evaluation. Although the quality of the ingredients is low, the skilled cooking techniques add a unique flavor to them. When players become wealthy and can cook master-level dishes in the future, they may reminisce about the past Jishu. At this moment, the nearby motorcycle lizard sniffed the scent floating in the air with its nose. Gah-ah. The straight tree looked at it, then brought 2 bowls of noodles to the table and greeted the motorcycle lizard, "Come and give it a try." Gah-ah. The motorcycle lizard furrowed its brows anxiously. To be honest, as a motorcycle lizard, it didn't really like the taste. Moreover, there was nothing else in that bowl except for the white floured noodles, and from the appearance, it seems that the taste of this food is not very good. As soon as Naoki saw it like this, he immediately understood the thoughts of the motorcycle lizard. He sighed helplessly in his heart, but did not force it. Instead, he comforted, "Forget it, if you don't want to eat, then don't eat." As he spoke, he began to fantasize again, "When I make money to buy other ingredients in the future, I will make you the food you like." After connecting with the ranch life, Naoki's heart was filled with anticipation. Upon hearing these words, the motorcycle lizard felt guilty instead. This is the food specially prepared for it by its new owner. Isn't it not good if it doesn't taste it? Thinking of this, the motorcycle lizard looked down at the noodles in soup in front of him and hesitated. Gah. Then let it eat this bowl of noodles. The motorcycle lizard stretched out 2 plump claws, picked up the hot soup noodles in front of him and bolted them into his mouth. The imagined bad situation did not occur. Although the taste of this bowl of noodles was simple, after drinking it, the motorcycle lizard suddenly felt its body warm, as if it had returned to its mother's embrace. Gah. Seeing the sudden movement of the motorcycle lizard, Naoki was initially surprised, but then calmed down. He looked at the motorcycle lizard and thought of the effect of this bowl of hot noodles in soup. He smiled and asked, "How do you feel?" Upon hearing the sound of the straight tree, the motorcycle lizard came to its senses and said, "Gee." It immediately lowered its head in confusion and looked at its own body. Why suddenly becomes warm when there are no humans riding on their backs? Seeing its actions, Naoki suddenly had a rough idea in his heart. It seems that dish can indeed bring benefits to Pokémon, Naoki thought to himself as he continued to ask, have you ever felt your body warm up and not as cold as before? Although it's already spring, the temperature hasn't fully recovered yet, especially in the morning when it's still chilly. The motorcycle lizard looked up in surprise and seemed to be saying, how do you know? Ga-ah. Naoki smiled and said, this is the power of food. Ga-ah. The motorcycle lizard's face was puzzled, and this statement was too advanced for it. Because it's just a motorcycle lizard. Naoki didn't continue to explain, anyway, when we live together in the future, the motorcycle lizard will always understand. Having determined the effect of the dishes he made on Pokémon, Naoki was in a great mood and quickly resolved his breakfast. After cleaning the utensils, he walked out of the cabin and went outside. The abandoned pasture is covered with lush vegetation, and a bird named Pokémon occasionally flies overhead while searching for food. Breathing in the fresh air around him, Naoki took a deep breath and immediately prepared to stroll around. He is preparing to familiarize himself with this place first. Walking in the middle of the ranch with a motorcycle lizard, Ji-Shu noticed that the scale of the ranch was larger than he had imagined. The edge of the ranch is fenced off with wooden fences, and the middle area is very large. To the east is a vibrant valley, and standing in the ranch, one can hear the wild Pokémon calling from there. Zhaozuiyuan.com. The farmland area occupies 1/3 of the pasture, with a lake in the southwest corner and a surrounding river. There is a wooden bridge over the river that connects the pasture to the opposite bank of the river. Standing on the bridge, Jishu looked at the decaying and broken wooden fence on the riverbank, thinking to himself that there was still a lot of work to do. Clean up weeds, rocks, cut down excess trees, and reclaim land to prepare for planting. As for the Pokémon cottage used to raise large milk jars, Naoki is not planning to repair it now. One is that there is not enough wood, and the other is that he does not have the funds. After all, whether it's rebuilding the Pokémon cottage or purchasing the big milk cans of those Pokémon, it requires a significant amount of money. Standing in front of the lake on the edge of the farmland, the straight tree crouched down and observed the scale and depth of the lake. He thought to himself, raising fish here is a very good choice. According to the original owner's memory, besides Pokémon, there are also ordinary animals in this world. However, compared to ordinary fish, Naoki prefers to raise some aquatic fish Pokémon. Like carp king, horned goldfish, ugly fish, and swamp-jumping fish, and so on. Be even bolder, such as the Tyrannosaurus rex, Minas, Shueibu, and Shishir Hyren. Although these fish are inedible, perhaps it is because of the obsession of a collector, as long as you keep them here and watch them grow straight, it will be very satisfying. Naoki summarized these things one by one in his heart, and he found that there were many things waiting for him to do. It is far from something that can be completed in a short period of time. The game of running a ranch that I had played came to mind, and Naoki was speechless for a moment. He just escaped 996, is he about to welcome 007? Chapter 4. Gulu done. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After wandering around the ranch, the entire terrain map of the ranch was remembered by the straight tree in my mind. As he rushed back with the motorcycle lizard, he suddenly remembered what the old mayor had said about leaving him some things in the miscellaneous room behind the house. The straight tree bypassed the wooden house and arrived at the miscellaneous room. When it opened the door, it saw various tools placed on top of a large box. Hammer, sickle, hoe, spray can, axe, a bag of crop seeds wrapped in red packaging, and a brown book called Ranch Encyclopedia. These tools are mostly made of iron and look very brand new on the outside. They should have been specially bought as gifts by the old town mayor. Naoki expressed his gratitude in his heart, as he was currently struggling to make ends meet. Step forward and put these tools away, and Naoki picked up the package of seeds again. The information about the seed immediately appeared in his mind. Turnip seeds. A spring crop that originally took 3 months to mature, but in this world, it only takes about a month to harvest. It is very suitable for crops grown by novice ranchers. If there is specialized care from Pokémon with grass attributes, its growth cycle will be further shortened. Ha! Naoki was a bit surprised. Growing so fast. He carefully recalled the memories of the original owner, and after a while, he finally found relevant information from the depths of his memory. This world is inherently like this, with fast crop growth and short cycles. Because of this, humans here have hardly ever experienced food shortages. No wonder the Pokémon world gives people a utopian feeling. Naoki murmured in his heart, human beings don't have to worry about food issues, and with the existence of Pokémon, productivity has been greatly liberated, which also allows young people to travel freely and do what they want to do. However, Naoki learned from the original owner's memory that not all crops grow at such a fast pace. Some crops also have an extremely long growth cycle, almost maturing once a quarter. Naoki nodded silently, then picked up the book and opened the front page, discovering that it recorded the methods of planting and cultivating crops. On each side, there are different crops, which record in detail how to cultivate the land, the time of crop planting, how to fertilize, the watering cycle, and so on. After flipping through it a few times, Jishu put it away in a rare way, and then left the miscellaneous room with the motorcycle lizard. There is a cave opposite the miscellaneous room, and when a straight tree enters it, it discovers that there is not much space inside the cave. From the memories of the original owner's childhood, it can be inferred that this cave has 2 main functions. One is for growing mushrooms. After all, this dark and humid place is very suitable for mushroom growth. The second is used to raise buzzing bats. The buzzing bats raised here will go outside after the sun sets, foraging, and also bring back various tree fruits and common fruits for ranchers. This magical Pokémon is a born foodie. They can emit 200,000 Hz ultrasound waves from their ears to search for ripe fruits to fill their stomachs, hit the fruits with ultrasound waves, and then only select the ripe ones for consumption. Interesting, Naoki thought to himself. After understanding the purpose of the cave, the straight tree did not stay here for a long time. He returned to the front with his tools and looked at the farmland occupied by weeds, preparing to gradually clear a small area for planting turnips. Seeing his actions, the motorcycle lizard on the side also volunteered to help. I saw it flicking its tail, accompanied by the heavy drop of the tail, and the stone seemed to have been hit hard, splitting into pieces. Ji-shu. He looked down at the hammer in his hand and the stone that had been smashed with great effort, but for a moment he didn't know what to say. The motorcycle lizard seems happy to be able to help. Looking at its appearance, Naoki sighed helplessly and said with relief, "Then let's work together." Ga. At the same time, in the central area of the Parthian region, there is a basin surrounded by tall and steep mountains. This is the Parthian Pit, a mysterious area known as Zone 0. Below this area lies a modern and advanced laboratory. In the deepest part of the laboratory, Dr. Olin, who specializes in studying the legends of the Parthian region, and her husband Futu looked excitedly and eagerly at the tall and mysterious advanced machine in front of them. The time machine has finally been successfully developed. Dr. Olin, dressed in a white coat and adorned with a necklace resembling ancient animal teeth, exclaimed excitedly. "Finally, I can see the Pokémon from the future and past recorded in Zhu Ziji's book." Dr. Futu was also very excited. He and his wife spent many years staying at the deepest part of the Parthian Pit, conducting this research. One of them was responsible for studying ancient times, and the other was responsible for studying the future. With the help of the special area deep in the Parthian crater, they finally developed this device. It can teleport Pokémon, capture Pokémon from different timelines, and bring them to the modern world. Let's start trying now. I want to witness those Pokémon from different eras with my own eyes. Dr. Olin said. Dr. Futu nodded, not knowing what was on his mind, with a hint of tenderness in his expression. Suddenly, he asked, "Is Peppa's 8th birthday coming soon?" Dr. Olin nodded and said, "Exactly, this time we can bring back Pokémon from those eras to live with Papa. Let's start." Dr. Futu happened to have this idea. He took a deep breath and began to look forward. What kind of expression would Papa show if he saw those Pokémon? That child has always been fond of Pokémon. If they see Pokémon in the future and the past, they will definitely be happy, right? There are no parents who don't love their children. Upon careful consideration, they haven't been back to accompany Papa for a long time. Coincidentally, I will be on vacation for a period of time this time, so I will spend some time with Papa. Dr. Futu thought to himself and started the time machine with his wife using an ID code. Buzz. Accompanied by a strange buzzing sound, the time machine quietly began to operate. The space around the laboratory also underwent strange changes, and the walls were like mirrors, rhythmically emitting red and purple light. The two of them stared at the time machine without blinking, excited and nervous. Quickly, the rhythm around slowed down. Immediately after, a dazzling red light flashed through the center of the time machine. The two of them were extremely nervous inside. As the light gradually faded, a Pokémon they had never seen appeared below the time machine. That is a tall and sturdy mysterious Pokémon with upright feet. Its body is crimson, with white accents on its face, abdomen, thick legs, and tail. It has a thin and long tentacle on its head, resembling a dragon's whisker. Below it, it is adorned with a cluster of bright blue-purple feathers, appearing domineering and bold. It has a pair of golden pupils and looks fiercely at the two humans on the opposite side. Success! Dr. Olin and Dr. Futu felt relieved when they saw the Pokémon. Finally. Their efforts have not been in vain. Let's use the Pokémon ball to put it in first. Dr. Frodo said calmly. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Dr. Olin nodded, raised her hand and took out the prepared Pokémon ball, then threw it towards the Pokémon. However, at the moment the Pokémon saw the Pokémon, its golden pupils suddenly narrowed into a slit. It let out an imperceptible roar from its mouth, casually waving its right paw and throwing the Pokémon ball away. Dr. Olin and Dr. Futu felt a hint of hostility from it. Their expressions were tense, just about to release the Pokémon around them. But it was discovered that the mysterious Pokémon from the past suddenly turned around and looked around, as if confirming something. Quickly, it seemed to have obtained the answer. The next second, the Pokémon's eyes showed an incomprehensible emotion. Its legs suddenly exerted force, ignoring the two doctors, and it lifted its foot and rushed out of the laboratory. Its speed was extremely fast, and before Dr. Olin and Dr. Futu could react, they rushed out of the laboratory in one breath. Then he lifted his head and looked upwards. The feathers on his head spread out and turned into something like wings, charging straight towards the top. How many years have you been waiting for? So Leyton no longer remembers. It conjured up in its mind the expression on its face when it fell into the time machine. Worry, anxiety, panic, and the arm extending towards it, wanting to hold it. That day, it was still a motorcycle lizard. That day, it fell into the time machine, returned to ancient times, and was influenced by unknown forces, becoming what it is now. Chapter 5. Back Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As noon approached, Jishu and Moto Lizard cleared a small piece of land for planting, and moved the cut wood and stone materials into the miscellaneous room for storage. Goo goo goo. After a busy morning, the motorcycle lizard's stomach made a gurgling sound. It lowered its head and said, "Ga. Are you hungry?" Naoki laughed at the sound and said, "Just a moment, I'll go make lunch." The motorcycle lizard immediately became happy and said, "Gee." They washed their hands in the sink outside and then returned to the wooden house. The motorcycle lizard sat under the eaves to cool off, while the straight tree took out its ingredients and began to get busy. Today's lunch is still hot noodles and soup, but the difference is that straight trees add some wild leeks found in the pasture to make it more flavorful. Once born and twice cooked, this time it was successfully completed in just a few minutes. Put the noodles into a bowl, and the straight tree looked down. It was found that the level of the hot soup noodles was changed from C to C, and the cold resistance protection time was also increased by 5 minutes. Sure enough, the ingredients can also affect the evaluation of the dish. The straight tree picked up the bowl and placed it in front of the motorcycle lizard waiting at the table early. The motorcycle lizard lowered its head and saw that the bowl was still filled with strange noodles, and a pitiful expression appeared on its face. The impoverished straight tree said, He sighed and thought of the small amount of money left by the original owner. He comforted, hold on a little longer, and I'll take you to the town to buy delicious food this afternoon. Fortunately, the motorcycle lizard did not despise the poverty of Naoki. It was a simple optimist, and upon hearing Naoki's words, it immediately became happy and began to look forward to what would be delicious in the evening. Watching the motorcycle lizard lift its bowl and look up to drink noodles, Naoki finally ate the noodles in the bowl with a worried expression on his face. The remaining money will be quickly used up after buying food. The land has just been turned over and the seeds can only be planted tomorrow. It will take a month to mature. The farmland occupied by weeds is somewhat hard and unsuitable for crop growth. This morning, Jishu flipped them over and watered them in to make the soil soft. Although there is no fertilizer, fortunately, turnips do not have high requirements for soil quality. Besides, I must find other ways to make money to survive until the turnip harvest. Thinking of this, Naoki couldn't help but fall into contemplation. The method of making money, he thought of what he would do in the past when he was playing games on the ranch. One is through fishing, and the other is to go to the back mountain to collect mushrooms and fruits, in order to get through the early stages of the game. But now, he doesn't have a fishing rod yet. The only way is to go to the back mountain to try his luck and see if he can find any mountain goods. Do whatever you say, and after lunch, Naoki prepares to head to the back mountain. Upon learning of his intentions, the motorcycle lizard, which was originally walking upright, suddenly bent down and landed on all 4 limbs. It turned around and shouted at him, Naoki was slightly taken aback and saw the motorcycle lizard in riding mode. He asked, "Are you asking me to ride it?" The motorcycle lizard nodded and said, "Gee." With curiosity, Naoki rode up. When he sat down firmly, the motorcycle lizard began to run. Its speed is neither fast nor slow, very stable, carrying a straight tree towards the direction of the back mountain. Feeling the airflow brushing over his hair, Naoki thought to himself, no wonder the motorcycle lizard has become a means of transportation in the Parthian region. This feeling seems no different from a normal motorcycle. After passing through a rural path, a lush mountain forest appeared in front of me. A large amount of sunlight poured down from above, leaving speckled shadows on the ground through the gaps in the leaves. The green caterpillar lying in the bushes, the small arrow sparrow standing on the branches, the rustling sound coming from the dense shrubs, or the juicy and heavy unfamiliar fruit hanging on the branches. A vibrant scene was presented everywhere. Naoki got off the motorcycle lizard and raised his eyebrows to look at the petite Pokémon. Those Pokémon also hung their heads curiously as they watched the unfamiliar human who had broken into the forest. The green caterpillar evolved into an iron-armored pupa at level 7, and into a butterfly at level 10. For novice trainers, this type of Pokémon is a good choice. Little arrow bird. If I remember correctly, this seems to be a family bird from the Carlos region, and the evolved fierce arrow eagle is a Pokémon with fire and flight attributes. It feels like a very cool Pokémon. Ha! Can that white mouse be a family of mice from the Parthian region? Naoki's gaze suddenly caught sight of 3 small figures in a patch of grass. 2 slightly larger white mice carefully poked their heads out, guarding a petite little white mouse behind them. 3 families. Naoki looked around and didn't find the 4th little white mouse. Seeing his gaze turn towards this side, the 3 house mice were startled and immediately turned around to burrow into the grass, disappearing without a trace. Ji Shu. However, it has to be said that a family of mice like Pokémon is quite cute. Before this, Naoki didn't feel like a plush control, but seeing the cute appearance of a house of mice, combined with their fine and pure white fur, still made him feel a little moved. I don't know what it feels like to touch. There are many Pokémon in the forest, and after strolling around with the motorcycle lizard, Naoki couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. If he were a trainer, he would definitely take out Pokémon balls and fight against them, and after gaining recognition, tame them. Whether it's a rapidly growing green caterpillar or a promising little arrow sparrow, they are all perfect. Unfortunately, it was learned from the original owner's memory that an ordinary red and white ball requires 200 lead coins and he cannot afford it now. Naoki sighed and immediately shifted his attention from those Pokémon to the mountain goods growing in the forest. He walked up to a lush fruit tree and reached out to pick a fruit from it. Looking down, the information about the fruit appeared in his mind. Peach fruit. A magical fruit that can cure poisoning, with a sweet taste. It can be used to make jam, baofan, fruit cake, or added to yogurt to make fruit yogurt. Its unique flavor is loved by many Pokémon. Tree fruit. Naoki picked up the peach fruit and placed it in front of him, lightly sniffing it, and smelling a faint peach fragrance. He brought the tree fruit to the motorcycle lizard and asked, "Do you want to eat it?" The motorcycle lizard glanced at it, then opened its mouth wide and ate the peach fruit in one gulp. Judging from its appearance, it seems to have a pretty good taste. It seems that, just like in anime, tree fruits are also the main source of food for Pokémon. Naoki had a rough idea in his heart, nodded silently, and picked a few peach fruits from the tree, ready to take them back to the ranch. However, he only took a small portion. Because if tree fruits are the food of Pokémon, then other Pokémon in this forest also need these tree fruits. If he picks all these peaches, there must be many Pokémon going hungry. Pack the peaches, and the straight tree rushes deeper with the motorcycle lizard. Zhaoshuyuan.com. This mountain forest is very large, perhaps due to walking in the wrong direction. Along the way, except for the peach fruit that was first encountered, the straight tree never encountered any other fruit trees. Time unknowingly arrived in the evening. The straight tree was tired from walking, so he sat under a big tree to rest. He glanced at the sky and felt that it was time to return. At this moment, the nose of the nearby motorcycle lizard moved. "What's wrong?" Naoki turned his head and looked. The motorcycle lizard turned its head and looked around, as if discerning direction. Not long after, it determined its position and stood up to look in one direction. The straight tree followed its gaze, gazing at the piece of land with nothing. At first, he was a bit puzzled, but soon discovered something strange. With the roots of that big tree as the center, all the green grass in the surrounding circular area withered. The motorcycle lizard shouted in that direction. Ji Shu stood up, feeling puzzled and walking forward with the motorcycle lizard, observing the strange area. Then he used his hand to pry open the decaying fallen leaves and yellowed grass on top, and discovered an unknown black object below. At this moment, Naoki also smelled that smell. That is a very unique and indescribable odor. He was still wondering what it was, but the next second, its information automatically came to his mind. Black truffle. A top-quality premium ingredient that is a rare delicacy. It can be made with eggs to make black truffle steamed eggs, or with butter to make creamy soups. Although it does not have any inherent benefits, it can greatly enhance the cooking effect. Chapter 6. The First Money Earned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Black truffles, perhaps due to a lack of money, Naoki's first thought when he saw this thing was. Should the price of this thing be very expensive? But soon, he noticed the gain effect behind it. Although it does not have any gain effect, it can greatly improve the effectiveness of cooking. What is this? Advanced synthetic materials. Regarding this point, Jishu can make judgments based on the settings in previous games. In that game, there are also ingredients of this type that exist. Adding it to the dish can not only turn the effect of LV1 into LV3, but also potentially transform short-term buffs into permanent buffs. In this way, the preciousness of black truffles has risen to another level. Good thing. The straight tree carefully dug out a whole piece of black truffle. Seeing his movements, the motorcycle lizard also crouched on the side, looking grand and hesitant. It wasn't until the large truffle as big as the palm of the hand was loaded into the backpack by the straight tree that it looked up and said in confusion, "Ga. This is a good thing that can improve our quality of life." Naoki smiled and said to the motorcycle lizard. He weighed it in his hand and felt that this piece of black truffle weighed about 1 kilogram. As an outsider, he doesn't know the price of black truffles, but based on the appearance and scale of this black truffle, he can also feel that its price will definitely not be low. Looking up at the sky, seeing that it was getting late, Naoki rode on the motorcycle lizard and asked it to take him towards the ranch. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Naoki had just returned to the ranch and was about to pour out a glass of water when he heard the sound of a flute outside. Dee dee. He walked out the door and saw a box truck with a spray logo driving in from outside. The strong and muscular man with a cut in his arms leaned out of the car window and enthusiastically said, "Are you the new owner of this ranch, Jishu? Mayor Thomas has told me that I am Zach from Kaichin Market, specifically responsible for purchasing goods from nearby ranches. Please take good care of me in the future." "Hello, Mr. Zach," Naoki greeted politely. Zach turned off the truck and jumped off it. He looked around and saw the newly opened farmland not far away. He grinned and said, "It seems you have successfully started working on the ranch. Do you have anything to sell?" Zach just casually asked. He knew very well that novice ranchers could not bring out mature crops and wool milk to sell. After all, the development of ranches takes time. But the next second, he saw the new rancher pull out a large black object from somewhere. The knowledgeable Zach recognized the name of the thing at a glance. He opened his eyes wide and exclaimed in surprise, "Black truffles. Wow! This specification of black truffles is very rare and rare. Where did you find it from?" "House-hun." Naoki asked, "Can it be sold?" Zach quickly nodded and said, "Of course, the price of this thing is very exaggerated. A normal quality black truffle is about 5,000 alliance coins per kilogram, and the quality and specifications of the black truffle you have in your hand are almost top-notch. This quality of black truffles is rare in the market, and the price is about 15,000 alliance coins per kilogram. That unique taste has been sought after by many people, especially the upper echelons of the wealthy and aristocratic class. They are all beings who do not lack money. 15 pounds. Naoki's heart twitched, meaning that the black truffle in his hand was worth a total of 30,000 alliance coins. For this price, Naoki couldn't help but feel a bit tempted. "Do you want to sell it? This level of rare ingredients used in cooking can bring great improvement to Pokémon. If sold, he would have enough money to buy seeds, repair the ranch, and prepare food." For a moment, Naoki fell into hesitation. But soon, he made a decision. We need to have a long-term perspective. Even though black truffles can enhance the effectiveness of cooking, if it is exchanged for cash, it can accelerate the development of the ranch and earn more money. When the ranch develops, he can use this money to purchase other top-tier ingredients with the same effect. Thinking of this, Naoki no longer hesitated and simply chose to sell. Upon seeing this, Zach took a weight from the car and measured it, then pointed to the mark on it and said to him, 1 kilogram and 100 grams. He took out his calculator and notebook again, used them for a brief calculation, and finally said, "The total is 33,000 Union coins." "Sure." The straight tree nodded. "Then I'll take this black truffle with me," Zack said as he took out a stack of money from his wallet and handed it over. Naoki reached out to take it, carefully counted it, and then breathed a slight sigh of relief in his heart. "I have received my first payment as a rancher." He can finally stop eating the tasteless hot noodle soup. Zack had to go to other ranches to collect goods. Before leaving, he looked around the entire ranch and suggested, "Besides planting crops and raising Pokémon, there are many ways to make money. Have you never been to Jianshin Town before? If you go there, remember to buy a fishing rod at the grocery store. During the growth period of the crops, you can make money by fishing. Look for Shuyuan www.jiaoshuyuan.com, but you don't have to worry. It's always difficult at first, but it's much better in summer. At that time, besides growing ordinary crops, you can also plant hops to make beer. Beer full of rural atmosphere is very popular in big cities." Hops. Suddenly hearing the familiar name, Naoki raised his eyebrows. However, what he thought of was not the brewing process, but the beer brewed by his hands, which may also have some strange effects like cooking. Naoki thought to himself like this, nodded on his face, and said to Zack, "I remember. Thank you very much." Zack smiled heartily and said, "Come on." After speaking, he bid farewell to Naoki and drove a large truck away from here. Jishu returned to the wooden house and looked at the small piece of black truffle left on the table. It was accidentally broken by him while digging. The price of black truffles is so expensive. I don't know if raising the fragrant dolphins can help them arch out the hidden truffles underground. The straight tree pondered slightly. He plans to keep this small piece of black truffle well until he can make the desired dish in the future, and then add black truffle to it to enhance the effect of that dish. As for now, looking at the thick stack of alliance coins in his hand, Naoki felt great. It's time to take a stroll around the town and buy new ingredients to come back and cook. Naoki rode on the motorcycle lizard, pointed out the direction, and the motorcycle lizard ran towards its destination. The straight tree sat on its body, looking at the sky dyed red by the sunset, and hummed softly in its mouth, "Riding on my beloved little motorcycle, ga-ah." The motorcycle lizard's face is puzzled. Is the beloved little motorcycle talking about it? Chapter 7. What kind of experience is it to pick up a divine beast at the beginning of the game? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jianshin Town is located in the northwest of the Parthian region and is a bustling seaside town. From the memory of the original owner, it is known that this town has various local festivals. For example, Spring Festival, Water Pokémon Rally, Summer Limited Fireworks Festival, and so on. These distinctive festivals have attracted many outsiders to travel, and coupled with the developed animal husbandry near the town, over time, it has led to the development of Jianshin Town. The place in the town called Zaichin Market is even more famous. Jishu walked on the street with a motorcycle lizard, and the pedestrians on the road were also accompanied by various Pokémon. They walked leisurely against the sea breeze, and the air was filled with a pleasant and comfortable atmosphere. On this trip, besides purchasing food, Naoki has another very important thing to do. That's to visit the carpentry shops, grocery stores, seed shops, as well as shops selling ranch Pokémon and ordinary animals in the town. It's almost 6 o'clock now. Naoki was a bit worried that those shops would close in a while. After some thought, he said to the nearby motorcycle lizard, "Are you hungry?" "Gah." The motorcycle lizard nodded and shook its head again. Smart enough, it saw that the straight tree had something to do and said it could endure it any longer. Seeing its appearance, Naoki smiled happily and touched its head, saying, "Good kid, then accompany me to the grocery store first." "Gah, the town is not big, perhaps to ensure that tourists from other places who come here will not get lost. Whether on the street or on the roadside billboards, the locations of various shops are clearly marked on the map. Finding the grocery store from above, Naoki went straight there. After passing through an intersection, a red brick building appeared in front of a straight tree. It was evening, and there were not many people in the store, only a bald man wearing glasses sitting behind the counter teasing a paparazzi. Upon hearing the wind chime outside the door, the uncle looked up and said, "Ah. We have guests. Welcome." Naoki politely said hello and then asked, "Do you have any seasoning here?" "Uncle." "Yes. It's on the innermost shelf." Jishu went there and as expected, he saw various seasonings on the shelf. Oil, salt, vinegar, soy sauce, flour, spices, red bean filling, butter, sugar, pepper. Their prices are clearly marked below the shelves. For example, a bag of flour costs 200 union coins, a bottle of oil costs 100 union coins, red bean filling costs 150 union coins, and so on. Looking at these, Naoki couldn't understand the prices of Pokémon World. A small bag of flour and a Pokéball are priced the same, so it seems that the price of the Pokéball is not expensive either. After a moment of contemplation, Naoki purchased a portion of each seasoning. When he brought the things to the counter, the boss showed a surprised expression on his face. He took out the packaging bag and asked, "Just moved to Zichin town?" "That's right." Naoki nodded. The boss smiled and said, "Then enjoy your life in Jianshin town. Alright, the total is 2,820 alliance coins." Naoki didn't rush to pay, but asked, "Is there a fishing rod here?" "Fishing rod?" "Yes." As he spoke, the boss turned around and took out several fishing rods from the back shelf, placing them on the counter and introducing them one by one. The price of each fishing rod is different. This is from the 2000 Alliance, and with bait, you can catch Pokémon and fish in areas with water. The price of this fishing rod is 5,000 union coins. Well, it uses more advanced materials, so its performance is better than this 2001 and it is not easily damaged. As for this one over here, the price is 15,000 union coins. This is the latest powerful fishing rod, which uses the highest quality materials in both material and performance. Ji Shu. His gaze lingered on the 3 fishing rods, and in the end, he chose the ordinary 2000 fishing rod, ready to use it for transition. The total is 4,820 union coins. As you are a first-time customer shopping at our store, I will give you another box of bait for free. Please visit us more in the future. The boss smiled and handed over an iron can. "Thank you, boss." Naoki took something and turned around to leave the store. His second stop was a carpentry shop, located on the edge of the town, with a forest behind him. There is a wooden stake at the entrance of the shop, and there is also a saw inserted on the stake. The straight tree was about to knock on the door when it automatically opened. A strong woman with a pink ponytail and a headband walked out of the room. After expressing her intention to the other party, the woman took him into the studio in the back. "Are you the rancher who just moved in?" the woman asked curiously. Naoki was slightly taken aback, then realized that it was probably Mayor Thomas who had greeted him again. He nodded and said, "My name is Naoki." "Woman. Just call me Chloe." "Okay, Miss Clay." As Clee walked, she introduced the process of expanding the ranch house and said, "You haven't named that ranch yet, have you?" Naoki shook his head and said, "Not yet. I just arrived here yesterday." "Don't worry, I'm just casually asking." "Well, Mayor Thomas has already told me about the situation." "Are you here to learn about repairing the Pokémon house and expanding the residential area?" "That's right. I'll tell you one by one. Repairing the Pokémon cottage requires 50,000 union coins and 300 pieces of wood. After the repair is completed, you can raise the big milk jar and braided sheep there. Of course, this price is a bit expensive for you now. So I recommend you start by building a chicken coop where you can raise ordinary chickens. The eggs they lay can also be sold for profit. The chicken coop only costs 20,000 Union coins and 150 pieces of wood. In addition, it is necessary to build a silo specifically for storing feed in the ranch. When you first build it, we will give you a free silo as a gift. Upon hearing these, Naoki nodded thoughtfully, while keeping these prices in mind. What about expanding residential areas? This is much simpler, said Klee. Expanding the house will be divided into 3 times. The first time will make your house bigger by adding a separate kitchen and bathroom. The second time we will help you expand the second floor. The third time we will expand the basement, which is usually used by ranchers to make wine. Of course, if you have enough funds, you can also choose to do it simultaneously, and we will help you expand it all in one go. In addition to these, our store also provides customized furniture services. In addition to basic tables, chairs, and benches, you can also purchase wallpaper, carpets, refrigerators, storage cabinets, various lighting fixtures, and more. 5 minutes later, Naoki walked out of the carpentry shop. He calculated the remaining money in his mind and suddenly felt that he had a lot of things to do. Why do you feel busier than 996? Naoki sighed and imagined the day when the ranch would resume its former prosperity, with a hopeful expression on his face. Then he could relax and enjoy the leisurely life of the rancher. Since the Pokémon house cannot be built now, there is no need for him to go to a store selling ranch animals for the time being. Riding on a motorcycle lizard, I headed straight to my final destination. The seed shop. The owner of the seed shop is a middle-aged man wearing a brown coat, with brown hair and a slightly bulky physique. When Naoki arrived here, he was having dinner with his wife and daughter. Seeing a guest coming, the boss immediately stood up and said, "Welcome. Come and see what seeds you want to buy." Naoki didn't know that he only had a bag of turnip seeds sent by the mayor at home. Under the leadership of the boss, he saw a bunch of various seeds on the container. Potatoes, turnips, garlic, strawberries, cabbage, cucumbers, radishes, tomatoes, grass, and even some tree fruit seeds, such as peaches, oranges, and oranges. The owner of the seed shop explained, "These are all crops and fruit trees suitable for spring planting. After artificial cultivation, they are all very easy to grow. As long as they are watered and fertilized on time, they can grow big and good." Naoki nodded silently. The seeds of this world are different from the stories of ranches and Stardew Valley that he has played with. There are many seeds in a bag here, which can grow a large piece of land, unlike in games where a bag of seeds can only be planted on one grid. After a moment of contemplation, Naoki decided to buy a pack of each seed, including the seeds of those fruit trees. The prices of these seeds also vary, with the most basic turnips costing only 60 alliance coins per pack, while strawberries and cucumbers require 120 or 150 yuan per pack. All the seeds and one piece cost a total of 1,370 alliance coins. As a result, only 27,000 yuan remained for selling black truffles. Pack the seeds and straight tree walks out of the store with the motorcycle lizard. The sky outside has already darkened. Jishu looked at the stars in the sky, took a deep breath, and said, "All right, we can go have dinner now." The motorcycle lizard looked a bit pitiful. Naoki smiled and touched its head, then took it into a restaurant. After a tiring day, he plans to eat out tonight. The waiter handed over the menu, and in addition to human food, there were also specially prepared foods for Pokémon in the restaurant. Motorcycle lizards, like Pokémon, should be more fond of eating meat, right? Thinking about it, Naoki ordered a meat dish for the motorcycle lizard and also ordered a tree fruit set meal to reward today's great hero. Soon, the food was served on the table. Seeing the motorcycle lizard feasting on it, Naoki felt happy from the bottom of his heart. Pokémon are really simple and cute. Lowering his head, he looked at the fragrant vegetable stew and corn broth in front of him, and their messages also surfaced. As expected, these dishes do not possess the special ability to enhance Pokémon. Naoki's heart confirmed this. It seems that only dishes made by my hands have that power. After dinner, Naoki went to the ingredient store again to buy the ingredients for the next few days. Because he doesn't have a refrigerator at home yet, he only bought 3 days of it. The temperature is not very hot this season, and food is not easy to spoil when placed in a house. Zhaoshuyuan.com Naoki was carrying big and small bags, riding a motorcycle lizard. In the darkness, one Pokémon began to rush towards home. At night, the temperature in the air is a bit low, and the wind blows on people with a chill. The motorcycle lizard is very afraid of the cold, but riding on the straight tree on its back is warm, helping it dispel the chill. At this moment, the motorcycle lizard suddenly wanted to drink another bowl of hot soup noodles made from straight trees. The motorcycle lizard was very fast and returned to the ranch smoothly in less than 30 minutes. The ranch at night was dark, and because he had anticipated this situation in advance, Naoki brought a flashlight with him before going out. He was groping for a flashlight in the darkness, but before he could even touch it, he suddenly heard a bang. The sound was loud, accompanied by the sound of trees breaking. It's like something fell from the sky and plunged into the pasture, knocking down a piece of trees. Naoki was startled in his heart and finally touched the flashlight. He quickly took it out and looked ahead at the pasture with the lights on. Soon, he saw a strange black shadow in his own farmland. Naoki was startled, and the motorcycle lizard next to him also stood up from the riding mode, vigilantly looking over there. It felt an unusual aura. The beam of the flashlight hit the black figure, who lay motionless on the ground, as if unconscious. With the help of the light, Naoki finally saw the true face of the black shadow. The crimson body, thick tail, magnificent dragon whiskers, and the airbags on the chest that resemble motorcycle tires. That's Naoki suddenly froze in place. Chapter 8. The God of the Past, Leyton. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a small wooden house with lights on. Naoki and Moto Lizard looked at the Pokémon lying on the floor, which they had dragged in from outside. With just one glance, Naoki recognized the identity of this Pokémon. Paradise Guardian Dragon, Winged King, God of the Past, these are all terms for this Pokémon. It had no name at all, and was only discovered after being summoned to this era when its doctor named it Leyton. That's right, so Leyton. One of the cover gods of the game Pokémon Purple, according to records, it once used its fist to crack the earth. At present, everything about its ecology and other information in the world is unclear, but some people believe that it is the Pokémon of the motorcycle lizard in the past. Although similar in appearance to a motorcycle lizard, in terms of temperament, Leyton is more tenacious and ferocious than a motorcycle lizard. Naoki looked at Leyton and then at the motorcycle lizard, and found that their appearance and skeleton were indeed very similar. So, here comes the problem. How did Leyton appear in this place? Naoki fell into contemplation. He was pondering in his mind the intelligence related to Leyton in the game. Summoned by Dr. Olin through a time machine, he escaped from Zone 0 after failing to compete for territory with the other protagonist, Leyton, and ultimately fell to a beach in the southern Parthian region due to detachment. He was picked up by the protagonist of the game, so, what exactly is the situation now? Naoki was a bit confused, so he glanced at the innocent motorcycle lizard across from him and then lowered his head to look at Leyton. The next second, Leyton's tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and his golden pupils were filled with a fierce aura, locking onto the human in front of him. Naoki was startled. But then, the fierce aura disappeared, so Leyton continued to stare at him. Ji Shu. Dot. Ga. The motorcycle lizard beside him tilted its head. Upon hearing the call of a third party, Leyton's expression was slightly taken aback. After seeing the figure of the motorcycle lizard clearly, Leyton's eyes first showed an expression of disbelief, and then seemed to understand something. It suddenly remembered many things in its mind long ago, when it was still a motorcycle lizard, it also encountered an old Leyton one night. Today is also like the past. However, at that time, its position was that of the motorcycle lizard on the opposite side. It looked at the somewhat intimidating motorcycle lizard on the other side, intimidated by its own breath, and suddenly realized what had happened to the old Leyton it encountered as a motorcycle lizard. That is itself. It fell into the time machine, waited for thousands of years in distant time and space, and finally was called back again, but it came to a time and space even earlier, so Leyton's gaze was fixed on the motorcycle lizard. Naoki saw the two facing each other and was afraid that this unknown creature, Leyton, would suddenly go crazy and attack the motorcycle lizard. He quickly stood in front of the motorcycle lizard, blocking Guillotin's line of sight, gritted his head, and said as kindly as possible, that. Are you okay now? I just saw you fall from the sky, and then I brought you back to my home. For such a strange and violent Pokémon, it's better for him to be careful. Seeing the straight tree protecting the motorcycle lizard, Leyton's mood couldn't help but become complicated. It looked at this scene with a gloomy and unhappy expression, feeling a bit sour in its heart for some reason. What makes its mood even more complicated is that the motorcycle lizard is still itself. It used to be Naoki silently observed the actions of the old Leyton. If the enemy doesn't move, I won't move. But just then, a gurgling sound suddenly came from Guillotin's stomach. An awkward atmosphere also permeated the air. Ji Shu. He and the motorcycle lizard had already had dinner, and seeing that Guillotin didn't seem to be going crazy, he quietly breathed a sigh of relief and said to Guillotin, "Are you hungry? I still have food here, do you want to eat?" So Leyton immediately obediently nodded his head, completely losing his previous fierce demeanor. As soon as he heard something to eat, he immediately changed his appearance. Naoki couldn't help but complain. But he still stood up and took the motorcycle lizard to the cabinet, taking out the fresh ingredient he had just bought today. A piece of plum head meat. This type of meat is thin but not greasy, fat but not greasy, and the original cut pork chops cooked are fragrant, tender, and juicy, making it very suitable for large-bodied Pokémon like Leyton. After washing the meat, remove the fat and skin, then cut it into small pieces of moderate thickness and put them into a bowl. Naoki took out the seasoning he had just bought and found dark soy sauce, light soy sauce, oil consumption, white sugar, black pepper, and starch used to thicken the sauce. Put the seasonings into a bowl one by one, stir well with the processed pork chops, and wait for the meat to absorb all the sauce before putting it into the pot. Start cooking slowly over low to medium heat. Quickly, golden oil began to seep out of the meat, accompanied by a crackling sound of oil jumping, and a tempting odor spread throughout the room. The pork filled with sauce in the pot slowly turned golden yellow, and the fresh pork was full of vitality, swaying slightly in the rich aroma and fat, bursting with fresh and tender juice. During the process, the straight tree looked back. At some point, I saw Leyton transform into a galloping form with all four limbs on the ground, drooling and looking at this side. The motorcycle lizard not far away had already filled its stomach, but after smelling the smell, it still swallowed saliva helplessly. Naoki couldn't help but laugh and estimated the time in his heart. When it was almost time, he took the pork cutlet out of the pot and divided it into two parts to put on a clean white plate. Looking down, information about this dish also surfaced. Fragrant fried pork chops, B. The ingredients, heat, seasoning, and unique cooking techniques have created this popular dish. The full and juicy fried pork chops can bring unparalleled vitality to Pokémon. Cooking effect. Stamina recovery, large, strength enhancement, large, experience and insights gained from Pokémon, small, lasting for 60 minutes. Evaluation. Fresh ingredients and excellent cooking skills bring this delicious fragrant fried pork chop, which is most suitable for Pokémon who pursue power. Zaishuan www.zhaosuiyuan.com, Naoki was a little surprised. How effective is this fragrant fried pork chop? The duration is a bit short. Naoki thought of the black truffle he had found before. Would adding this strengthening material to it make the duration permanent? I'll have the chance to give it a try in the future. He placed the plates in front of the motorcycle lizard and Leyton, watching them feast on them. After a moment of thought, he turned around and took out 2 brand new glasses, 2 tree fruits, and 2 bottles of moo milk. How can you not have a cup of fresh juice to relieve greasiness after eating meat? In addition to this, Naoki also wants to know if using tree fruit juice directly will have a magical enhancement effect like cooking. The shape of the tree fruit is similar to that of the fruit, but because it is not enough for juice extraction, the straight tree is prepared to add an appropriate amount of milk to mix. After washing his hands, Naoki added the juice squeezed from the 2 tree fruits into a cup, and finally poured in milk to mix well. This milk was purchased by him at the Zaichin market, with a 500 milliliters bottle costing 120 union coins. Quickly, mix the juice and milk evenly. Naoki fixed his gaze and, as expected, the information about this bottle of juice milk came to his mind. Juice milk, c. A juice milk made by mixing fresh tree fruits with nutritious moo milk, which blends the fruity aroma well into the milk and is a very suitable drink for Pokémon. Cooking effect. Cow Pokémon is limited, and after consumption, it will slightly improve the quality of the milk produced by consumers, making it taste better and more nutritious. Review. Delicious juice milk, you deserve it. Chapter 9. Leyton pulls down the hanging willow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Improve the quality of milk. Cow Pokémon Limited. The straight tree raised its eyebrows, looking somewhat surprised. He only knows that the effect of cooking will directly enhance Pokémon's strength, speed, and other benefits similar to cold insulation. But it is unclear whether the cuisine still has this auxiliary type of reinforcement effect. This is very helpful for the work on the ranch. Will making other dishes have similar effects? There are so many types of delicious food that even 50 years may not be enough to cook all the dishes in this world. However, at this moment, Naoki developed a strong interest in the unknown cuisine and effects. It's still a long time, I can try it slowly. As Naoki thought, he turned around and placed 2 cups of juice milk in front of Leyton and the motorcycle lizard. Although neither Leyton nor Moto Lizard are milk-producing Pokémon, it is not a problem to give them a regular drink. Before being summoned by the time machine, Leyton was competing for territory with another disliked Leyton. It was slightly injured in that battle, and after being summoned, it was certain that it had returned to this time and space. It didn't have time to rest and immediately rushed towards home without stopping. Now that he had finished the meal made by Naoki, savoring the familiar taste and slowly recovering from his injuries, Leyton felt his whole body and mind relaxed. It couldn't help but pace forward to the side of the straight tree and happily licked his face with its tongue to express affection and longing. Just Naoki didn't know what Leyton was thinking at the moment. At first, he was very frightened, but he relaxed when he thought of how Leyton would also rub against players and peonies in the game. Feeling drool on his face, Naoki speechlessly pushed away the old Leyton. So Leyton didn't get angry either. He sat down foolishly on the side, his thick tail wagging and swaying behind him, watching the straight tree wash its face. After the motorcycle lizard finished eating, Jishu put away the tableware, cleaned it thoroughly, and then stretched lazily. After a busy day, it's time to have a good sleep. There is no bathroom in the ranch, so Jishu went outside and briefly rinsed it with a faucet. He lazily threw himself onto the bed, yawning and flipping through the information about spring crop planting in the complete ranch. He has a lot of things to do tomorrow. Cut down excess trees, smash stones in the fields, turn over the land, and plant those seeds and fruit trees. We need to try fishing again to see if we can catch some big fish, and then sell it to Zach in the evening to subsidize our family. The crops are not yet ripe and the Pokémon cottage has not been repaired, which is his only means of making money. Naoki arranged his plans for tomorrow in his heart while looking up at the bedside. The motorcycle lizard yawned and lay drowsy on the wooden floor. So Leyton also found a spot on his own and began to rest with his eyes closed. The scent of a straight tree, the familiar environment, and the lingering aroma of food in the air all make it feel incredibly reassuring. Although the ranch is far from the town and in the wilderness, with the presence of a motorcycle lizard, the straight tree does not feel afraid. Not to mention the sudden emergence of Leyton. Naoki smiled on his face and then lay down. Turn off the lights and sleep. The next morning, as a social animal's instinct, as soon as dawn fell, Naoki woke up. Looking up at the pendulum clock on the wall, I realized it was only 6:15. Naoki originally wanted to squint for a while longer, but as soon as he thought about how much else he had to do today, he immediately lost his drowsiness. He rubbed his eyes and got up to prepare breakfast. Upon hearing the rustling sound from the bed, Leyton opened one eye and saw that it was a straight tree waking up, so he continued to sleep. The motorcycle lizard straightened up. Seeing its movements, Naoki passed by and touched its head, chuckling softly, "Keep sleeping. I'll go prepare breakfast and wake you up later." Gah, so the motorcycle lizard closed its eyes again and lay down on the floor to sleep. This morning, Naoki prepared a sandwich for the motorcycle lizard. Mix the toast bought from the Zaichin market, self-fried pork chops, and freshly sliced tomatoes and lettuce together, and finally apply a thick layer of cheese sauce. A fresh sandwich is ready. Jishu lowered his head to look, and information about the sandwich immediately surfaced. Sandwich, D. A sandwich that combines various fresh ingredients, with a combination of meat and vegetables, rich in nutrients, and is very suitable for breakfast. Cooking effect. Energy boost, small, making Pokémon more energetic and less prone to drowsiness. Review. A basic fast food sandwich, a great breakfast choice, is it just an increase in energy? Naoki was slightly disappointed, but thinking that only the meat cutlet was self-fried among these ingredients, he felt that this was already quite good. After preparing breakfast, Naoshu woke up Liangbakmeng. He wanted to make a sandwich for himself, but looking at the package of instant ramen noodles left in the cupboard, he thought about not wasting it, so he cooked it himself. However, when he served the noodles out, he was discovered by the sharp-eyed Willow. He looked down at the sandwich in front of him, and then looked at the bowl of hot noodles in soup. Suddenly, he became upright, replaced the food, took up the hot noodles in soup and poured them into his mouth. Jishu. He was somewhat surprised and looked down at the empty porcelain bowl, asking, "Do you really like this?" For Leyton, this is the first meal made from a straight tree it has eaten, and it has extraordinary significance. In the near future, the pasture will become more and more prosperous, and the straight tree will hardly make hot soup noodles. Now seeing each other again, Leyton feels nostalgic. Willow said, "Gaaoaoc, Naoki doesn't understand, but judging from the expression on Guillotin's face, it should be very fond of eating, right?" This is completely opposite to the motorcycle lizard. Without much thought, Naoki finished washing his bowl and went outside carrying a hoe. A new day of work is about to begin. After yesterday morning's training, the cooperation between Jishu and Moto Lizard at jiaozuiyuan.com has become very tacit. The motorcycle lizard uses its tail to break stones and clear them, followed by a straight tree and turned over the ground with a hoe. During this period, some large trees may also be encountered, and if the strength of the straight trees is not enough, they will hand the axe to the motorcycle lizard and ask it to help cut down the trees. So Leyton stood not far away, watching this scene. Suddenly, it let out a series of roars from its mouth, then turned around and ran to a big tree, with its arms wrapped around it and a fierce force exerted. The big tree was uprooted and thrown aside. Upon hearing the commotion, Jishu and the motorcycle lizard turned their heads and looked towards this side, each with a question mark written on their heads. What? So Leyton didn't stop, he continued to help with logging and moving stones in the fields. The straight tree's eyes widened and he said, "What a powerful force. Is it repaying kindness?" It has to be said that with the help of Pokémon with the strength of Leyton, his workload has indeed been reduced. Seeing that Leyton did not stop, Naoki and the motorcycle lizard continued to work hard. With the addition of Willow, work efficiency has been greatly improved. In just one morning, most of the farmland area was cleared. The straight tree, sweating profusely, carried a watering can to water the land in order to make it softer and more suitable for planting. It would be great if there were a Pokémon in the water system at this time, Naoki couldn't help but think. The land that has been watered needs to cool down for a period of time before planting can resume. Naoki was not in a hurry to tidy up the entire farmland area. One reason is that the number of seeds is insufficient, and the other reason is that they are short of manpower and unable to keep up. This is enough for them to work hard for a long time. The 10th Octopus School. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At noon, Naoki prepared cold cucumber slices as food. The effect of this food is just right for heat resistance, and if eaten, the body will become cooler. So Leyton and the motorcycle lizard still ate sandwiches. It's not that Naoki doesn't want to make new dishes, but because he's been busy all morning and he's too tired. So this afternoon, Naoki is preparing to take a good rest and try fishing by the river. Worried that the motorcycle lizard would feel bored, after lunch, Jishu looked at the glutinous rice flour and red bean stuffing in the cupboard and fell into meditation. Maybe he could have some small dim sum when fishing. Do whatever comes to mind. Naoshu immediately took out the glutinous rice flour, added water, kneaded it into a dough, rolled it into long strips and flattened it, and then put the red bean filling and sugar prepared in advance into it, rolled it into a ball shape. Soon, snow-white balls appeared on the stove. The motorcycle lizard was attracted by this novel gadget and curiously approached to observe. Naoshu glanced at it and smiled. This is a kind of dim sum called glutinous rice dumpling. I wonder if you have eaten it. The motorcycle lizard shook its head and said, "Gee." Naoki said, "Then you can experience it this afternoon." I just don't know if you like this taste." The motorcycle lizard nodded repeatedly and said, "Wow." Naoka couldn't help laughing and said, "Silly, you said you liked it before you had eaten it. Don't you worry about the taste of hot noodles in soup." The motorcycle lizard felt embarrassed and touched its head with its paws. On the other side, Leyton couldn't even look directly. Was it so foolish in the past? Shouldn't Leyton also look at it like he does now? At this moment, Jishu turned his head to look at Leyton. He shouted, "So Leyton." So Leyton immediately ran over and leaned towards the other side of the straight tree. Gayy hiss. Naoki pondered for a moment before asking, "Did you come here from the Parthian pit?" After much thought, he decided to ask about the origin of this Leyton. He wanted to know if Leyton, like in the game, had escaped Zone 0 and entered the Parthian region due to a failed territorial battle with another Leyton. Upon hearing this, Leyton nodded. Seeing this scene, Naoki whispered in his heart that it was indeed true. He asked again, "Did you fight another Leyton before?" So Leyton was dumbfounded and said, "Quack, quack, quack, quack." "How did you know?" Naoki thought to himself, "I don't know what's going on." But fearing to hurt the heart of this old Leyton, he did not inquire about the outcome of the territorial struggle, but only asked, "Do you have any plans in the future?" Willow said, "Gawoc." Although he couldn't understand, Naoki still recognized the meaning of Leyton. It wants to stay here. This also aligns with his thoughts, so Leyton's strength is so great that he would definitely be a good helper here. Naoki was excited in his heart but said calmly, "You can stay here, but you have to take care of the ranch affairs with me." Ga. Before Naoki could finish speaking, Leyton nodded in agreement. At this point, after wrapping the last glutinous rice balls, Naoki put them into a steamer and steamed them slowly over low heat. After estimating the steaming time in his heart, Naoki took a horse tie, brought a fishing rod and bait, and went to the riverbank that surrounded the pasture. Before putting on the bait and throwing the hook, Ji-Shu said to Guludun and the motorcycle lizard, "I'm going fishing, you guys go play." In spring, the pasture is covered with dandelions and a small yellow wildflower. Upon hearing the words of the straight tree, the motorcycle lizard went to the side to play alone. It was attracted by a butterfly and chased it running in the grass. After running for a while, the motorcycle lizard stopped in front of a fluffy, white, and soft dandelion, then lowered its head and curiously observed the small fluff on top of the dandelion. Suddenly, the motorcycle lizard felt a slight itching in its nose. It couldn't help but sneeze heavily, and suddenly, the dandelion seeds were dispersed by this airflow and flew towards the blue sky. The motorcycle lizard looked up with a naive and curious gaze at this scene. By the river. Ji-Shu looked at Guleten on the side and asked, "Aren't you going to play?" Gay hiss. So Leyton shook his head as he looked at the slowly flowing river and the shadows of fish, big and small, in front of him. He also looked at the fishing rod held in the hand of the straight tree. So suddenly a big light bulb lit up on Leyton's head, and he came up with a good idea. Before Naoki could react, his breath suddenly surged on Guleton's body, and he jumped up high, changing his form while violently smashing into the water. Wow! A large expanse of river water was washed up into the air, turning into drops of water that splashed down like rain. Naoki. He stared blankly at the scene. So Leyton jumped out of the water and happily invited him to take credit. The straight tree lowered its head and saw the turbulent water flow slowly stabilizing, with black shadows emerging from the water. They rolled their eyes, apparently knocked unconscious by the attack of the late Leyton. Naoki suddenly didn't know what to say. He looked at Guleten and couldn't help but say, "Although I know you're looking for the Shuyuan website www.xiaoshuyuan.com to repay my kindness in taking me in, there's no need to exaggerate it." Therefore, Leyton immediately lowered his head in disappointment and said, "Gao." Naoki said helplessly, "Okay, I didn't mean to blame you." "Well, you did a great job." So Leyton's eyes immediately lit up and he said, "Ha ha ha ha, Ji-Shu." He sighed and instructed Guleten to pick up the fainting fish and put them into a small bucket filled with river water. So Leyton immediately obediently followed suit and quickly caught the fish. The fish in this season are not yet very plump, but for the newly started straight tree, this is not very important. He picked up several carp kings that were mixed up among ordinary river fish. So Leyton looked at the 3 red fish with some confusion and said, "Ga-ah. They can't eat." Naoki shook his head. He originally wanted to release the carp king into the river, but suddenly thought of the lake in his own ranch. Farming and raising large milk jars require a long amount of preparation work. During this period, why not raise a few fish first? Not only the carp king, but these ordinary river fish can also be raised. After thinking for a moment, Ji-Shu came to the lake with an iron bucket and put the 3 carp kings inside. After the release, he did not immediately leave, but stayed in place to observe the situation of those carp kings. Because he's not sure if they were knocked unconscious by the old Leyton or just killed by the collision. Fortunately, these 3 carp, Wang Fu, had a great life and did not die. After being unconscious for a few minutes, they slowly opened their eyes. After changing to a different area of water, they did not feel frightened and continued to swim slowly in the water with a dull expression.